Welcome to New York's number 2 sports show. The Eastern Conference final matchup is set. The New York Rangers will face the Florida Panthers. And the Florida Panthers are definitely the team that I think that they will give the Rangers the biggest competition out of the East. These are the two best teams in this conference. And that's not to take anything away from the Carolina Hurricanes, because really you could say that it's all three of them. And I think that there is a little bit of a step below when it comes to Boston. I would have liked for the Panthers to have been knocked out, but hey, to be the best, you got to beat the best. And look, right now the Panthers are the class of the conference in the sense that, hey, they did reach the Stanley Cup final last year. And this should be a great series. Really, really good one. I was fairly confident the Rangers would beat the Carolina Hurricanes. In this one, it's going to be close. You got to think it goes at least 6 or 7 games. I'll make my prediction as Rangers winning it in 7. And could they win it in 6? Possibly. But I think that what I'm glad about, just from a hockey perspective, is that I think you have the two best teams colliding. And just in general, as I record this, there's 5 teams left in the NHL. I think that you're seeing, and this doesn't always happen, but you're seeing the best teams still alive late into this tournament. You haven't really had the crazy upsets that have been in years past. So really excited for this. And I think this is a series where you may see we've seen a lot lately in the playoffs in general, but I think road teams might have some success. There's going to be a lot of Ranger fans down in Florida, as there were for Carolina, but I'd say even more so in Sunrise. And the Panthers, they're a very, very good road team. They won all 3 games at Boston, and the Panthers in these playoff runs have honestly been better on the road than at home. So keep that in mind. But what will be key, as it was last year versus Carolina, is to be able to somehow take those first 2 at home. Keep that home ice advantage either way. And it's not going to be easy. Like I said, the Carolina series, if you split the first 2, it's not the end of the world. Then you're just going to have to steal a game in Florida. But that was kind of, I think, even though things got dicey a little bit towards the end, the fact they gave themselves that cushion helped. And I'm hoping that the adversity that they had to go through in the Hurricane series will serve them well moving forward. But let's talk about a few things, I guess, in terms of historical significance, if you will. This is the second meeting between these two teams in the playoffs. The first time was 1997, a first-round series. It was a 4-5 matchup, Florida being the 4 seed, Rangers being the 5 seed, in which the Rangers won in 5 games. What would be most remembered in that series would be probably a couple things. Wayne Gretzky's hat trick, and that was talked about a lot with the Kreider hat trick in one single period. Well, Messier did it in 94 against the Devils in Game 6. Wayne Gretzky did it in Game 4 against the Panthers in the second period in 97. So, and then Esa Tikkanen, he had a overtime winning goal in Game 3 and then to clinch in Game 5. And what's interesting about this is that the Florida Panthers, the year before, 1996, they were coming off a Cup final appearance. They lost, they got swept by the Colorado Avalanche. So can the Rangers be the team to knock off the Panthers again, coming off of a finals appearance? We'll see. But yeah, so not a whole lot to speak of. This really isn't much of a rivalry, but I'm sure things will get very interesting and a lot more physical in the series. That's the thing. Panthers-Rangers, I expect a lot more hitting. Hurricanes-Rangers is different. Carolina's style of play is aggressive, but they have more of a speed component to their game. Florida has a lot of size. And so that's what makes them really, really difficult to handle, whether that be forwards or defense. They really have that. What's interesting, too, is that the last couple Ranger Conference final appearances were also versus Florida. Now it's the Florida team's trend continuing as, of course, 2015 versus the Lightning, Rangers losing 7. 2022 versus the Lightning, Rangers losing 6. So hopefully a different Florida team can bring about a different result for the Rangers. But the Rangers they have had a lot of success, I feel, in the regular season versus Florida. I don't have the stats to back that up. When the Panthers weren't as great a team, but now, just keep it in terms of this season. And I didn't really talk much about I did for the Capital preview. I talked a little bit about the what happened in the regular season. Take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But against the Panthers, Rangers did go 1-2. And 2 of those games were at Madison Square Garden out of the 3. And the 2 games that were decided in regulation were both won by Florida. Granted, they were close games. They were 1-goal games. Each and every game was close. And that's what I'd expect to see in this series. And that's why I think there's a good chance it goes 6 or 7. And we're going to see some overtimes, I think, as well. But Florida, I was impressed by them more than anyone in this conference. I'm going to leave out the West for now. But in terms of the East, I think that Florida poses a little bit more of a problem for the Rangers. But that said, the Rangers have shown the ability. They have been, dealt with a lot of different situations all year long and have responded each and every time. And look, the Panthers were not all that impressive themselves. In these first 2 rounds of the playoffs, they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning in 5 games, and they beat the Boston Bruins in 6 games. And in watching them, I think they probably have another gear they can reach, and the Rangers too. I think both teams, they've been winning these series, but there's still more to give as well. I think there's another level that can be taken on both sides. In terms of the goaltending, Sergei Bobrovsky will be a lot tougher than Freddie Anderson. Freddie Anderson was a major reason why the Rangers won that series. The difference between Shesterkin and Anderson was massive. Bobrovsky versus Shesterkin, different. Sergei Bobrovsky is a Vezina finalist this year. And looking at his numbers in the playoffs so far, his goals against average is good, but his save percentage is low. So I guess the Panthers must be doing a pretty good job of shot prevention because, again, not allowing that many goals, but the save percentage is like about .902. Whereas last year's playoffs, higher goals against, but a much higher save percentage, around .915. I kind of go off of save percentage more than goals against average. But Bobrovsky is no joke. This should be a great, great goalie duel. In terms of former Rangers and former Panthers. So Vincent Trocheck, is the center of it again, right? We talked about last series how he's a former Carolina Hurricane. Vincent Trocheck even more so. He was drafted by the Florida Panthers and was with them for the first 6 or 7 years of his career. That's the main guy again. And look, there's always going to be that extra bit of motivation. And in the case of the Panthers, he was traded away to Carolina. Whereas with the Hurricanes, he left via free agency to go to the Rangers. So, he's going to have that chip on his shoulder. And he was a pretty significant part of that team, from about the mid-2010s to the late 2010s. And the other former Panther on the Ranger roster is Alexander Wenberg, who played 1 season with the Panthers in 2021. That was the 56-game season when they realigned. And the Panthers that year lost in the first round to the Tampa Bay Lightning. On the Panthers side, it's 2 former Rangers. Both of them, ironically, were involved in the same last trade deadline, or a little before the deadline. It was Vlad Tarasenko and Nico Mikkola coming from the St. Louis Blues to the Rangers. And I thought both of them did fine. It was beyond them, in my opinion, as far as why the Rangers didn't advance beyond the Devils. But, Mikkola signed a 3-year deal with the Panthers in the offseason, and Tarasenko got traded at the deadline from the Ottawa Senators to the Florida Panthers. And then as far as the coaches are concerned, it's interesting. The Laviolette Paul Maurice story, and it dates back to Carolina. Paul Maurice was the head coach of the Hartford Whalers and the Carolina Hurricanes for a long time. He gets fired and Peter Laviolette replaces him. Laviolette wins the Stanley Cup with Carolina. But then what I forgot about is that Laviolette gets fired and Paul Maurice got rehired actually by the Hurricanes for a bit of time. And then Maurice was with the Winnipeg Jets for a while. So I believe there's a history there with Jacob Trouba, Blake Wheeler, maybe some others that I'm forgetting. But there's definitely a little bit of a history there with Laviolette and Maurice. But this is going to be a heavyweight matchup. And just to name some players on the Panthers, that top line, Barkov centering Tkachuk and Verhaeghe, is legit, and they're going to be tough to stop. It feels like they aren't going as crazy as they did last postseason, but as I look at the numbers, they're pretty damn good. So they're going to be a handful. Sam Reinhart really does a lot of his work on the power play, but beyond that as well. And so they have a nice top 6. Anton Lundell scored a really big – he's kind of an under-the-radar player, scored a really big goal in Game 6 versus the Bruins. Evan Rodriguez has been a good pickup for them. I think if you're a Ranger fan, you would remember him most from the 2022 Penguins series, Evan Rodriguez. But yeah, up and down the lineup, Sam Bennett is a big-time playoff performer, and he got hurt in the Lightning series and returned in the Bruins series, and he was definitely causing havoc. This is going to be a much more feisty series than the Hurricane one. And, I just think that this is really going to be a step up. Not majorly so. And if you go by Vegas odds, Vegas liked Carolina more than Florida because Carolina was a minus 160 favorite in the Rangers series, whereas Florida is a minus 140 favorite. Look, they don't really respect the Rangers that much. And, hey, they have their reasons, but you know what? The Rangers can use it as a chip on their shoulder. But it's a good bottom six as well. You have guys like Nick Cousins and Ryan Lomberg, Kevin Stenlin, Kyle Okposo, the former Islander. He's been in the lineup a bit for them. So it's a good deep team. And then their six defensemen, Gustav Forsling, Aaron Ekblad, Nico Mikkola, and Brandon Montour. And then Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Dmitry Kulikov. So, again, you look at these rosters and you see why they made it as far as they did. So really excited for this series. Again, would be great for the Rangers to take that 2-0 lead. It's not going to be easy. I'm not saying I'm expecting it to happen, but it'll really, I think, catapult them and make life easier for them. And I hope that what they went through in the Hurricane series is lessons learned and experiences gained because they're going to need it in a big-time way. And Florida is playoff tested. This was a team that, again, they lost to Lightning in 2021 in the first round. 2022, they win the President's Trophy, beat the Caps in round one, and lose again to the Lightning in round two. So they exercised some demons this year by beating the Lightning in round one. But going back, this has been a good Panther team for the last 4 years or so. The ways they've gotten there have been different, though. And the coach and who their coach has been different as well because Paul Maurice was the last 2 years. Before that, it was Andrew Brunette who had replaced Joel Quenneville. So they've had some shuffling of the deck head coaching wise. But Florida had Florida Panthers had not won a playoff series since 1996 until they beat the Caps in 2022. Then last year, it's a late scramble for the Panthers to get the last playoff spot in the East. They knock off the President's Trophy Boston Bruins. And they make it all the way to the Cup final before losing the Vegas Golden Knights. So they have tons of different experience. And not for nothing, they swept the Carolina Hurricanes last year in the Eastern Conference Finals. So that's why, in my opinion, the Florida Panthers are just a bit better than the Hurricanes. That all said, I think the Rangers can win this series. They're more than capable of doing it. Philip Hedl being back in there will be important. It's hard to be ultra confident that he'll be able to get back in the lineup and stay there. But I think his services would be pretty damn important. They went back to Miller Trouba, which got a lot of ice time. So that does concern me. Jacob Trouba is going to be definitely a concern, but they've made it work for the most part anyway. But yeah, we'll see what happens as far as the lines are concerned. This series does not begin until Wednesday. So another situation where the Rangers have a nice bit of rest. I was hoping that the Bruins-Panthers series could have gone 7. It only goes 6, but that's all right. I mean, it could have went 5, and the Bruins extended it. So, but yeah, the Rangers, they've had about a week off or so after the regular season ended, after the first round ended, and now after the second round ended. And it seems to have been good for them immediately. So let's hope that continues. But yeah, we're at the Final Four for the Rangers. They're back to where they were in 2022. And they are going to hope to make it a little bit further than that. So it'll be the New York Rangers against the Florida Panthers. It all begins Wednesday night at Madison Square Garden.